of the Tairona still survive, here in the high mountains of northern Colombia. The Spaniards sent several expeditions to try and conquer the rebellious and independent Tairona. They never totally succeeded. All that happened was that after savage battles, the people moved higher and higher up into the mountains to keep as far away as possible from the white men.
Averi sige moge pari imi dun zani kavin dei me zan kwar buna chunta zo ri mizu nar nakash
Eventually they were allowed to live up here comparatively unmolested until the Christian missionaries caught up with them. They lived in this village until only a few years ago, when the Ica politely told them that they had listened carefully to their message for several years and found it unconvincing. Perhaps now they would leave them alone to pursue their own ways and beliefs. In the large mission graveyard there are just 3 lonely Christian graves, and the chapel is now firmly and permanently closed. The Ica's world abounds in symbolism. Outside their village, they maintain a sacred garden stocked with every kind of plant known to them. In the heart of that stand sacred houses. The path to the men's house is itself a symbol of male fertility. Protruding from its roof are special sticks which maintain contact with the higher levels of the universe. Only men are allowed here. Women have their own house nearby. And here the men sit and debate. And here too they chew coca leaves and drift into a mild trance as the drug takes effect. The leaves are chewed with powdered lime, kept in a bottle called a poporo, and it's a matter of pride to build up a ring of lime around the mouth of the bottle. These days, poporos are modest gourds, but before the Spanish conquest, they were made from gold. These, excavated from 1,000-year-old graves, are clear evidence that the habit of drug chewing has great antiquity. Perhaps, too, it was the visions they saw while taking drugs that led the goldsmiths to model a strange menagerie of golden monsters, fantastic creatures that could only have lived in the minds of the men who made them. It is possible that the Ica, even today, use golden objects in their rituals. If they do, they will certainly not show them to anyone from the outside world. They want no part of that. "400 miles to the south lived another gold-using people, the Muiscas. They offered their gold to their gods in the form of images of themselves, and from these we can see how the Muiscas wore their clothes and jewelry and what weapons they carried. It was from these people that there came a legend which excited the Spaniards to the point of frenzy, and which even today is a thrilling, magical one. The legend of El Dorado. But El Dorado was not just a legend, it was a fact. High in the mountains above the modern city of Bogota, lies a mysterious circular lake, Lake Guatavita. In ancient times, when a new chief took office, his people would assemble around these shores. Just before dawn, the chief, carrying a great treasure of emeralds and gold, was rowed out to the center of the lake on a raft, accompanied by his priests and his musicians. While it was still dark, they stripped him of his clothes, anointed his body with a sticky resin, and dusted him with powdered gold, so that he was literally El Dorado, the golden one. And then, as the first rays of the sun struck him, the chief threw the emeralds and gold into the lake. As he did so, all the people around the margin also threw into the waters their offerings of gold. And then, as a final act, the chief, glittering in the sunshine like a golden god, dived into the lake. The gold washed from him, and he emerged again as a naked human being. Without doubt, therefore, these waters have received an incalculable treasure. Eventually, the Spaniards discovered the lake and compelled the people to cut a notch in its rim. Water began to flow out, and round the margin they found gold. But before they could gather much of it, there was a landslip in the cut and the water began to rise again. The people mutinied, and the Spaniards had to be satisfied with what they'd got. Since that time, there have been many more attempts to retrieve the treasure. For although the Spaniards took bits and pieces from around the margin, most people think that the main treasure still lies in the center of the lake. But none of them have been successful, and at least one of them had all the characteristics of a farce. At the beginning of this century, an English company was formed called Contractors Limited. They came up here and made elaborate surveys of the lake, calculated that it was something like 120 feet deep, and decided that the way they would drain it would be to drive a gallery from outside the mountain up underneath the lake. What precisely happened, no one is quite certain today, but it seems that they did drive such a shaft and that they did wake up one morning to find the lake almost empty and an expanse of mud. They got a few objects from near the margin, but they couldn't go out into the middle because the mud was too deep. And while they were sitting and wondering what to do about it, the sun beat down on the mud and turned it all into hard as concrete. And then they couldn't get the gold out, and so they decided they'd have to go back to Bogota to get fresh equipment in order to deal with the concrete hard mud. And when eventually they came all the way back up here, they found that the mud, baked hard as concrete, had actually sealed their gallery, and the lake was now full of water again. And by that time, their money had run out, so they too abandoned the effort. And so it seems that almost certainly the greatest surviving golden treasure that lies in the Middle and South America lies in the waters of this lake, where its makers and owners intended it should lie, out of sight and out of reach, as an offering to the sun.